Hey guys, and welcome back to another League of Legends video. So today we're going to be looking at some more scrapped abilities that didn't quite make it into the game, and honestly, these are my favorite videos to talk about since you can kind of understand what could have been. What are some abilities that aren't in the game right now but also might make it into the future, since a lot of scrapped abilities that Riot decides not to put into the game end up kind of on this come back to later list, in which they end up putting them on different champions or altering them slightly so they can be implemented in the future. So yeah, hopefully you guys do enjoy the content. If you do, hit that like button, consider even subscribing, sit back, relax, and let's get started. Without wasting any time, I want to get straight into it with our first champion, who is actually Yone. So, one of the scrapped abilities for Yone included a flame wall that blocked vision on the other side. So here we have Jonathan Fuller tweeting out a response. We tried a version of Wind Wall that was a flame wall and it blocked vision on the other side of it. Very powerful and effective in terms of gameplay, but it was really hard to appreciate for Yone's team. And I can exactly see how this works, and this seems extremely difficult to implement, but just visually imagining this is mind-blowing. That is so cool, and I love when Riot gets creative with things more than recycling some of the same old stuff that we see now, like a knock-up or a stun. These type of things are super innovative and can keep League of Legends fresh, so I won't lie, I'm slightly disappointed this didn't make it, but I'm kind of understanding as to why, since it seems pretty complicated. I mean, imagine the logistics on this. Let's say Yone throws up a wall and on the other side it becomes all basically fog of war, right? So for the enemy, the side that they're looking at, which is the side that Yone is on, basically becomes all fog of war. That immediately sounds extremely powerful. I mean, let's say you have a Malphite on your team, alright? So Malphite's walking up with you, just a little behind so the enemies can't see him yet. You then use this blinding wind wall or flame wall to make a fog of war and block their vision. Malphite then flashes and R's straight across your own flame wall, smacking the entire enemy team up into the air, and they barely had a chance to react. That alone sounds like a balancing nightmare, and then maybe they made it so you can throw down a ward on the other side and it all goes away, but then it all of a sudden seems really weak. And then how does the team play with it effectively, since you wouldn't want the fog of war to apply to them, so they'd have to just know where the enemy team is blinded? I'm not too sure. It seems very difficult, and just thinking about it now, I kind of understand Riot. Moving from there, we actually have Pike, and Pike is quite the interesting one because he has a lot of different scrapped abilities, not just one, but a few, I think more than 3. So let me organize them here and let me tell you about them because they are all quite the insane things. Let me just say, the developers were having fun when they were creating Pike. There are a lot of overloaded abilities that were supposed to be given to him, but let me be honest, luckily ended up being scrapped, and I think that's for the better. He was supposed to have an ability like Zed's ultimate, which applies Death Mark and could be used with your own team's damage, which is actually fitting since he is an assassin support. But I mean, imagine applying a Death Mark and then having, I don't know, a Veigar one-shot combo hit you. All that damage being applied, I don't know who would survive it. It seems like a balancing nightmare, and I guess that's a trend here. A lot of abilities get removed because they are a balancing nightmare. Another thing that he was supposed to have is a dash that exhausted any enemy you struck and would reset if you hit 2 or more enemies. So imagine applying exhaust on a ability with, I don't know, a 10-second cooldown through as many enemies as you hit. So let's say you hit 2 enemies, you exhaust 2 enemies with one ability and then have it reset so you can dash and exhaust more enemies. What? How do I even comprehend that? Can you imagine exhausting an entire team with your ability? Holy, that sounds insane. Like I said, balancing nightmare, yoink, straight out of there. Another thing is a permanent invisibility. A permanent invisibility if he was within vision range of an ally and not in combat. So, you know, permanent invisibility, that is a weird one. I mean, I know we have something like Evelynn or maybe even Teemo, so we know that they can balance it, but I mean, damn, that's insane, especially since they were talking about all 3 of those abilities, and imagine them together. An invisible guy who walks up to you, exhausts your entire teammate, and then puts a Z ult on your ADC that applies damage based on whoever attacks him. Beautiful. Can you imagine that, Pike? Holy, that's 3 abilities in one right there. Three abilities in one champion that we were able to discuss. And actually, after a little bit further reading, I'm adding this voiceover after I finished the video. He actually had more. Pike had 2 more abilities that he was trying. He had a kidnap spell, in which he would place a marker on the ground and then reactivate it within a window to dash back into the direction, and the enemy he hit would teleport with them. So let's say I was in a bush, I would put down a marker, run through mid lane, touch the mid laner, and take him with me back to the marker. Man, my Pike has some of the craziest concepts. Could you imagine yoinking the enemy ADC straight back like a teleport yoink? That is hilarious. He also had a spell that would hold net charges that could be connected in order to create a free form trap. I'm not too sure what this means, but I'm gonna pretend in my head that it's similar to gangplank barrels in which you can connect them. However, instead of setting them off into damage, you're setting off a trap. They aren't explained very well, but that's what I'm gonna imagine. And boy, did they have fun with Pike. 5 abilities that they were just playing around with, and all of them put together would be insane. I love it. I absolutely love it. Onward from there, we have Kaisa, which, similar to Pike, had multiple scrapped abilities, not just one, and all of which were kind of interesting. So I want to start off with the first one, which is an iteration of her Killer Instinct, which is her ultimate, that was on her E and had a cooldown of 8 seconds, but didn't provide her with a shield. So this one's interesting because at first, in my head, thinking of an ADC that dashes to an enemy every 8 seconds sounds weird. I don't want to say it sounds broken, and it might be the first ability that wasn't scrapped because it would have been broken, but maybe just would have messed with her playstyle way too much. Because if you have an ADC jumping in without a shield, they're putting themselves in harm's way. I wouldn't know why every 8 seconds you'd want to dive straight into your death. However, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the idea was you would use it as a gap closer only after the team was on the defensive, but that would make it very situational, and I assume that's why they decided that they wanted to leave her as an ADC who dashes in, but wanted to adjust it to be 1, more balanced, and 2, make more sense, which is it being on her ultimate with a very, very strong shield. The next one is a flashbang-like ability that would white out the opponent's screen. This one I want to have a field trip with, because a flashbang a flashbang within League of Legends, I mean, the closest thing I can think of is the blind, which darkens our screen, but it doesn't flash our screen. That'd be like straight up Valorant style, big bright white light that just smacks you in the face, but on the League of Legends style camera, top down. I don't know. That's super weird. And I don't know if they'll bring that back into the game, because part of me feels like, no, that could kind of work. It would be super powerful. I mean, flashbanging your opponent in League of Legends and their screen just goes white. That's insane. But part of me feels like it could work. And part of me deep down feels like this is an ability that you guys will see in the future. There will be a flashbang ability. I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know how they'll implement it, but I think one day we'll see a flashbang in League of Legends. If they played with it, they played with it for a reason. The last thing they did with Kaisa was an iteration where her basic attacks were split into 5 slow-moving projectiles. Each did 1/5 of her regular damage, which was similar to the life form disintegrating ray. So this one's kind of weird, because obviously we know how her rays work when she opens up and fires that way, but having that basically be her basic attack is a similar situation to her Killer Instinct. I don't know if that would have been broken because they're slow moving projectiles. I don't know if that would have messed with her damage or balance, but I'm gonna chalk it up to just being a weird playstyle and would put her in weird situations way too often. So again, it's like they kind of kept the ability, but they reworked it into a different part of her kit. So now we have 2 of her scrapped abilities basically just being reworked abilities that still ended up with her kit, with just the flashbang being completely removed. So I don't know how special it is, and that's why Kaisa that's why Kaisa isn't my favorite on the list, but that flashbang is definitely noteworthy. Last but very much not least, we actually have Ornn. So he has some cool stuff, not gonna lie. So one of his scrapped abilities was an ultimate that spawned a volcano, which erupted boulders he could then charge into, causing them to explode. That has a lot of stages. But anyways, Riot Squad 5 on Reddit has this post here. Let me pull it up so you can read along. My favorite ability that I scrapped was an ultimate called Mulch Henger. Basically, Ornn spawned a volcano that erupted, spewing boulders around randomly in the area and would stun enemies that they landed on. Ornn could then charge into any of the boulders, which would cause them to explode, and I assume that means it would do damage. The name came from a way the rocks looked in the world during the ult. Fun as hell, but way too random and noisy. I can see why this is problematic, especially since he said the random part. The RNG of boulders flying everywhere seems chaotic. I mean, just randomly throwing down a volcano and maybe nothing hits the enemies, or a boulder lands on everyone and you have to decide which one will do damage by exploding it, seems a little bit weird, but visually, I would adore to see that. Like, I want to see these scrapped abilities come to life. That's why we animate them, but I'd like to just see it in the game. That would be absolutely insane. However, that's not all. Ornn actually had another ability, which were upgrades to his hammer based on different weapon sets. So he could, for example, have an extra hammer, which would do AoE, or he could refine that hammer into a blade for piercing damage, or he could make it into an axe for some extra CC. And this one is actually quite cool. I'm actually surprised that didn't make it. It really fits his character, and Riot loves making stuff fit his character. And I just imagine upgrading your weapon hammer as a blacksmith for it to give you in-game changes, like I mentioned, AoE damage, CC, piercing damage, etc., etc. That sounds pretty cool. I actually don't know why it was scrapped. Maybe his kit was already overloaded. Maybe they felt it just didn't fit in gameplay wise, which I guess it doesn't too much, but I would have loved to see it, not gonna lie. Anyhow, that does wrap up the video for today, and in my opinion, even better than our first episode since I started commentary. The abilities in this video are fantastic, and maybe we'll see them in the future. I don't know, maybe something like the flashbang we'll see in the future, but something more like the volcano that is super random, we'll probably never see, sadly. But hey, I still have my fingers crossed. If you guys enjoyed the content, hit that like button, consider even subscribing, leave any feedback in the comments down below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.